the director of Daystar Rising Academy, and this is part 2, technology. Gotta love it. So I wanted to share a few thoughts with youth, families that have children, and those that are interested in education. So before I get started, we'll just say a word of prayer. Father, we just thank you for this opportunity to come and to share what I believe is your heart. Lord, I thank you for each family member that is hearing this. Father, I thank you for our replay viewers. I thank you for our education system. I thank you, Father, for those that are really gathering and rallying the church in this season to pray and to stand on your word. And we just give you all praise and glory. Father, I thank you that you will be in all of the details, all of the technology, in Jesus' name. So once again, my name is Rosemary Blash, and I am the director of Daystar Rising Academy. Daystar is a online presence. I share information that is pertinent to education, to family. My husband and I believe that the Lord has really called us to really impact the family and the education mountain. And so I want to encourage you, one, as you're coming in, just say hello. Let me know where you are coming in from. My husband Kevin is helping me with comments and to kind of keep track. So do leave some comments. Share this with your friends. This is an opportunity to have a little bit of a dialogue, a conversation. I'm hoping. I would love for you to contribute. I would love for you to share this with people that you may feel would benefit from hearing the information. I'm going to be talking about A Nation at Risk. This was a document that was published several years ago when Ronald Reagan was president, and it showed the reasons that we were alarmed with our education system. And I wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive into that, because there are things that we are seeing, and we, being our society and really the world, there is information that we've gotten that is not always accurate. And I want to encourage you as parents, as adults that are able to influence or have an influence or impact in our children's lives, be it whether they're, kindergarten all the way up to that high school, college age, because our young people need to know how to think, how to read critically, how to do their own research, how to have discussion with people that may not agree with them in a productive manner. And there's going to be times when we don't agree. We're not the same. We don't all have the same perspective, but we can learn from one another, and we can make adjustments, and we can also be sharpened in our convictions, which is incredibly important, particularly in this season. It's been important for a long while, but I really feel like now it's we're in the thick of things. So one of the things that I've noticed recently, probably within the year that I've noticed, I know it's been in conversation longer than that, but there's been this word that I have seen in the Christian world and also in the secular world, and the word is reset. And that word in the Christian arena really speaks of getting our nation and the church resetting, becoming aligned, really taking our place as the church, as the ecclesia, and as a body that can influence and impact what's going on in our world. And sometimes people read that and they think, oh, they want to take over. And that's not the right vein in which that is conveyed. It is to be a blessing and to bless our nation, to bless other nations. And so that's that coming from the Christian arena, coming from the world, specifically the World Economic Forum. It's a way to manipulate the economy of our country, and as well as countries, other countries, the world economies, really. And it's really about control. And so, it's very interesting because, the things that the Lord does, they're original. He is a creator, but the enemy comes and he counterfeits. So that's just one piece that I'll just kind of leave, for you to think about. And I'm sure I'll come and talk more about that because it is something that we do need to be aware of. This conversation is part of that. And as we walk through this conversation and I kind of give you an idea of what happened, you may come to your own understanding of how things are being manipulated in order to reset in a negative way, in a way that man has control, rather than, we as the church allowing the Lord to control our lives and allowing him to bless us. The Lord, our Father God, is a giver and he's a blesser, and he desires for us to grow and to be nurtured and to be strengthened and to love. That's his desire. The enemy comes and he does nothing but take. He takes, he controls, he manipulates for selfish gain, and he uses man. Well, both man is involved in both arenas. We want to be really yielding to what the Lord would have us to do in order to be a blessing for others and ourselves, our children. This is a big reason why I take the time, and my husband and Yvonne and others that are using, the platform to share ideas, opinions, insight. It's because, we have children, aunts, nieces and nephews coming up behind us, and we want the best for them. So let me just pop up my notes here and go into A Nation at Risk. And I'll be putting some links into the comments section so that you can go back and you can look for yourself. And please, as I mentioned before, do share this, leave comments, leave questions. And so A Nation at Risk, this was, as I mentioned, a document that was, it was a research that was done. And what it did was it sort of highlighted some problems in the American education system. And the information itself was accurate, but the way that it was presented was not, it left a picture that was a bit skewed. This is something that can be done with absolutely anything. You write an article, you write a title, and if you write it in a certain way, it's going to send a certain message. That's just the way it is. Advertising's like that, and it's really up to us to understand that and to be aware. There are times when what you are seeing, you have to sometimes take a moment and think, is that really the message that is that someone means to convey, and why are they conveying that message? So this was a document that sounded an alarm concerning our children's education. And as I mentioned, there was a problem with how the information was presented. This is something to note and pay attention to because, as I mentioned, all have to learn to read information and to discern what they're saying. So, when it comes to our children, you may want to really think about encouraging them. Okay, they've read an article, especially on social media, particularly social media, but in our textbooks too. Some things are being said in a way that is stated as fact, and there may be nothing to back it up. No research, and even going to and looking at the research, looking at the source, looking at, again, what that message is. And when we learn to do that, we will be more skilled in discerning what is going on. For those of us that are believers, praying about what we are seeing, and that the Holy Spirit will quicken that caution note, that when it's necessary, or that green light when, yes, what you're seeing is accurate, and go for it. So one example of the problem with the statistics that was related to high school achievement scores. Most standardized tests were decreasing. And so this is a quote: "The average achievement of high school students on most standardized tests is now lower than 26 years ago." And this was at the time of the publication of A Nation at Risk. And it also says when Sputnik was launched. So there was this competition between the United States and Russia. The SAT, the Scholastic Aptitude Test demonstrated a virtually unbroken, so a downhill decline from 1963 to 1980. And it says verbal scores fell over 50 points and average math scores dropped nearly 40 points. So there are some other numbers to consider that are very important. So I noted 1963 to 1980, that is the time span that this particular document covered. Some of the other numbers that are important to note, that at that time, more students than ever were graduating from high school and attending college. The top U.S. students led the world in academic achievement. So even in the midst of this time period where you had more students going to college, which impacted the test scores, this is saying that the top U.S. students still led the world in academic achievement. So my point is that there were concerns that needed to be addressed, but to the extent that the alarm was sounded, our education system was not as bad as we were led to believe. Another report called the Sandia Report conducted a follow-up analysis of the test scores or the trends in 1990. So this is older research that I'm talking about, but the reason is because we have done things since then, even before then, but since then, based on this alarm that our education system was just horrible. And largely speaking of public education, I'm not sure if A Nation at Risk really addressed private education or not, but I know that most of this is really pointed towards public education. The report found, this new report, the Sandia Report, 1990, the report found that on nearly every measure, they found steady or slightly improving trends. You didn't hear that. You didn't hear anything about the improving trends. There is another important point to note, and that is in the early 1960s, college going was still rare. Not everybody was going to college. So the SATs were mostly being taken up until that point by well-off white males who took the standardized tests and applied to college. So the demographics changed. In the 80s, college was much more available to a wider group of people, more people of color, and it became more important in terms of getting a good job. So you had more people going to college. There were more people of color and more low-income students taking the test. And this is what caused the decline in the average scores from the 60s to the 80s. You had students that had to do some catch-up. But even with that, during that time period, there was an increase in the scores. So the catch-up was happening. So the idea that American schools were terrible just wasn't accurate. And part of what happened is in the process, there were attempts and this idea of school reform that occurred, and change upon change upon change, from going to for literature, for example, or teaching children how to read. You went from whole word to phonics, back and forth, and there was the big war, and there were problems with both. What I've come to understand fairly recently, I taught phonics. I taught in the schools for over 20 years, and that's how I learned how to read, was using phonics. And I'm a phonics person, and some people may feel like, well, a strict phonics program, maybe it can be dry, can be boring, can be tedious, and you do have to teach in a way that children, you engage their interest. A lot of children, I remember very distinctly just being very excited about reading words. I remember that the kindergarten, we were going to read, I was going to learn that next day 6 words, or how many ever it was. Most children are wired to learn, and their curiosity and their interest is a natural part of who they are. And so we as adults have to be careful that we don't take that right out of their personality. Even though things are maybe difficult for them, really they're naturally wired to learn and to love learning, and they're curious and they want to know everything. They explore. Babies will explore, and they usually explore using their hands and their mouth. Well, as they get older and they're able to learn things like how to read and how to do math, and things about the world around them, they're naturally curious. So the phonics I've always been a proponent of, because it is a skill that teaches children how to tackle words that they may not know, but they've been given certain skills that enable them to decode that word. And we teach them about context clues and using other tools as they're reading, so that they understand what they're reading. And we use different supports as well. So I'm not saying that strictly phonics with no supports is the way to go. But the whole word was more trying to teach children how the entire word looked. So they're really having to memorize words in order to be able to read, which, if you have words that are similar in structure, then there's going to be room for confusion. And that really was more of a you have Chinese, which is a one language that uses symbols. There are others, but just to use that as an example, you can teach children that way with a symbolic structure. But with the way English is structured, you have symbols that actually have meaning or sounds behind them. So it's a different. I may not be explaining that very well, but the difference is, you don't want to approach something in a manner that doesn't fit with how you can teach that child, and that's what the whole word, in my opinion, does. It doesn't really teach children to take those skills. The skills that they are left with do not enable them to handle something that is a new word. But if you're using phonics, they're taught how to decode, encode, look at the sounds, look at what's in front of you, and sound it out. That's something that's you'll hear a lot when you're listening to a phonics teacher teach a child how to read. Once children have that skill, they are able to read words that are challenging. So they're actually learning not on totally on their own, but they are learning. They're definitely, the teacher is important in terms of giving them their supports and encouragement, and even knowing, okay, well, this may be a little bit too difficult. Let's go back and let's firm up these foundations. So all of that to reiterate the point about when we're reading something and you hear, I mean, for years I heard, before I even was teaching, I heard about this, a nation at risk, and how bad our education system is, and what dire conditions we were in, and we had to do something now. And then, a little bit later, there is information that's presented, but it's not presented in the same way. So you don't have the same sort of energy or even exposure. People did not know about, the fact that, oh, well, we had a change in who was going to college and what kind of backgrounds we were dealing with, and what that would mean in terms of our test scores. And the reality was that there may have been some decline, but there was also a very steady increase in just about every measure. Because of that, we were put in this state of panic. Our education system is horrible. We're at the bottom. When you can create a crisis like that and then bring in an answer that is not necessarily the best answer, and that's what, and basically that's what I'm saying was done. There were, in my opinion, there were situations or uh, created that opened a window for systems to come in that were not beneficial to our children, which is why now we see more and more the difficulty behind teaching our children, and a very heavy weight of fear is put on parents and teachers. And then, of course, it gets transferred to the children when there is so much testing. Again, my opinion, but there is some research to support what I'm saying. And so I'm encouraging parents, teachers, aunts, uncles, look and stay involved with what your children are learning, how they're learning. Keep them engaged with the good old-fashioned, book. Not necessarily the electronics; they have their place, but a good old-fashioned book that a child can get lost in terms of just being engaged in reading, is going to benefit them in a great degree. And I'm saying this right now because we are in a situation where some schools have gone back in the United States and even across the globe. Some schools have gone back, maybe hybrid. Some schools, many schools are still online exclusively. And there are some schools, I think there are probably some private schools that have gone back, face to face and with certain precautions. So I just want to encourage you, as parents, to really consider what is the best for your child, how to really help them, how to stay engaged, how to support teachers. This is challenging for teachers, for students, and for parents. It's all really pulling on each entity when it comes to the stress. So I want you to be encouraged. Parents, take the time, read with your children. Even if it's not a part of an assignment that your teacher has given, take some time and read. Sit with them. Get a book and sit with them. Or, enjoy a movie that's based on some good literature together. Talk about what they've read. Math games. Pull out the board games and play those games. When you are throwing the die and counting, that's a great tool, great way for children to learn about numbers and just plain old counting things. Those kinds of interactions is really going to help your children to have strong foundations when it comes to education. Um, and also when it comes to the teachers, this that we're going through with, as a result of COVID is new to teachers, students, and parents. So be patient with one another. Um, ask questions and be patient when you need those answers, because they will come. Their parents and teachers are learning how to present the information to children using different platforms. Sometimes those platforms aren't not working well, and it's difficult to that's a very challenging piece, getting the platforms to work correctly. So even if they're not maybe working very correctly, do what you need to do to make sure that work is being done, that practice is happening, which is really what learning is about, giving your children an opportunity to practice reading, talking about what they've read, playing those math games. There are a lot of things that can be done, and you can note it, jot it down, take a picture, those kinds of things. And when you share that with the teacher, that gives that teacher another piece of evidence that they're making progress. It may not be exactly what's going on as far as their curriculum, and you may have to ask them. This is me just sort of sharing some thoughts, but I have, when I talk to other teachers, I know that our goal, teachers and parents, is for those children to succeed and to strengthen academically. So if they're able to make growth in reading, that's a plus. We want that. They're able to make growth in math, that's a plus. If they're doing the science and social studies, being able to look at those texts and understand what they're reading, that's critically important. And being able to write in a manner that they're able to communicate what they've learned, that's important. Those are some just basics that can be very helpful when it comes to supporting your children. And so I'm speaking to parents, um, uh, basically. And again, just know that you are equipped. You do have what it takes to raise your children. Teachers, you have what it takes to teach these children. They are looking for your love, your care. That makes school huge. Our children, especially those young ones, they remember their first teacher. So remember that, and just know that you are being a blessing to them. And when things don't go right, just know that's going to happen. Keep going. When you're being asked to do things that are impossible, do what you can. And then when you can't do anymore, you've done what you can. And you can always say that respectfully to your administration. And if things change, I've seen things change. I have said, why are we doing this? This doesn't make sense. This is doesn't seem fair. So those conversations do bring about change. So stick with it, to the extent that you can. So that's just a little bit about what I wanted to share tonight. And I do ask you to send me, put a comment in the comment in the chat. Let me know what you think. And I didn't look here, but I see Penny is here. Yeah, Penny noted here, I had to track down what the World Economic Forum was talking about. It is scary stuff. And for us as believers, it does, we can stay in that posture of prayer, knowing that the Lord has got everything in control, and we can make those changes, those differences. So thank you, Penny. I'm so glad that you hopped on, and thank you, Kevin, also for your comments. So my husband's putting here, my children loved hearing and reading the Chronicles of Narnia, and we still read them. And we also really enjoy listening to Avengers and Odyssey, which is like a radio program, very, very good quality. So there are many things that you can actually do, many things. And I'll try and put a resource list together that are very beneficial for you to participate in with your children. Great books that even teach us something called the Tuttle Twins, which that goes through our economic system and just things that our children don't necessarily learn in school. So there's awesome materials out there that are great resources. I put them on some of my blogs and some of the Facebook Lives, and I'll make sure to go back and kind of refresh those. But if you do go to Daystar Rising Academy, if you go to the blog, you're going to see some resources there that you can utilize, as well as blashlearning.net. So take advantage of those. Drop me a line, leave a comment in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. And let me just mention also, I normally do come on first Wednesday of the month, and I cannot believe it's December already. So we're making progress. We're getting through 2020. We'll see what 2021 holds. And we're just believing God for blessings. Kevin Blash, my husband, he comes on A Father's Heart to You. And he shares wonderful insights and information and encouragement. And he comes on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month at 8 o'clock. And then Yvonne Hicks, she shares, and my mind just, oh wow. Kevin, put that in there for me. So sorry. But Yvonne has shared some awesome things. In fact, I encourage you to go to her page. She shared her testimony about the her walk with the Lord and what she experienced after she spent some time away from the Lord, had an abortion, and what that meant. And she's very willing to share, her insights. She's willing to pray. So if you have questions or concerns or have had that experience, I really encourage you to go to her page, check out that testimony, and get in touch with her. And Yvonne is also the founder of Releasing Heaven Ministries, and Kevin and I are both blessed to be a part of that ministry. We have had opportunity to travel and to really open up the portals of heaven with our worship gatherings. It's been an honor. We have seen change. It's been absolutely amazing to see how we've been able to partner with the Lord and really by his leading go where he has led us to go and see changes made. And she's also written a book, An Oak of Righteousness. You would definitely want to take advantage of that. And Kevin has put the link for the book there. So thank you so much. It has been just a blessing to be with you. And yes, her Facebook, this is that Making It Plain. So check her out. Check Yvonne out on her Facebook page. This is that Making It Plain. And definitely the third Wednesday of the month, 8 o'clock. You want to hop on and join her, and we will let you know if there are any adjustments due to the holidays coming. So thank you once again for spending time with me, and be blessed.